former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley says that Donald Trump and his running mate need to change their rhetoric. Good luck with that. During an interview on Fox News yesterday, Haley was asked why she thinks Kamala Harris currently is in the lead among female voters. Here's some of what Haley had to say.
I think it's because Donald Trump and J.D. Vance need to change the way they speak about women. You don't need to call Kamala dumb. She didn't get this far, just by accident. She's here. That's what it is. She's a prosecutor. You don't need to go and talk about intelligence or looks or anything else. Just focus on the policies. When you call even a Democrat woman dumb, Republican women get their backs up, too. The bottom line is we win on policies. Stick to the policies, leave all the other stuff. That's how he can win.
Meanwhile, new polling shows a tight race in two key battleground states as we barrel into November. A new Quinnipiac University poll has Donald Trump leading Vice President Harris by 4 points among likely voters in Georgia, 49% to 45%. But in North Carolina, Harris leads Trump by 3. 49% to 46%. Hard to square those two. I guess the answer is things are close, and we should note both polls are within the margin of error. Meanwhile, Republican officials are reportedly sounding the alarm to the Trump campaign over its voter turnout operation in battleground states. According to some reporting in The Guardian, the Republican ticket has invested far fewer resources in its ground game than in previous cycles. The officials say the operations resemble a midterm cycle, not a presidential election. They also say that attempts by the Trump campaign to fill the gap through money from political action committees have come too late. The Republican National Committee once hoped for a massive ground game team in 2024. However, once Trump loyalists took over the committee, they redirected that funding to combating alleged voter fraud. And joining us now is national political correspondent for Politico, Meredith McGraw. Meredith, let's start actually right there with the ground game piece of this, because tonight's going to matter. We'll get to that in a second. But so much of the blocking and tackling of politics of campaigning is about the ground games. And it does seem like Democrats have a significant advantage over Republicans.
Well, this is something that I keep hearing again and again from Republican strategists on the ground in some of these battleground states. The Trump campaign has outsourced a lot of their ground game operation to outside conservative groups who are doing the things like door knocking or voter data gathering or making the phone banking phone calls that are so essential to driving turnout on Election Day, or even just gauging where different voters on the ground are. And a lot of that has been outsourced, and that's caused a lot of angst among some Republicans on the ground who don't feel like the Trump campaign is doing enough at the moment to edge out Democrats' organization.
So we played a clip from Nikki Haley, and I think her efforts to get Trump and Vance to tone down their rhetoric will fall on deaf ears. But she's on to something about Trump's problem with women. Polls show that he's down there. And, of course, tonight he squares off against a woman in Vice President Harris. Talk to us how the Trump campaign is trying to close this gender gap.
Well, look, Donald Trump has been behind Harris by double digits with women, and he really hasn't been able to close that gap at all. And his performance tonight at the debate could be really important in all of that because, of course, like you said, he is squaring off against a woman again. And when I asked Trump's campaign about this yesterday, they said that Trump respects women. He's not going to change his tone, and he's really going to be focused on policy. And that's what Trump's advisors are hoping, is that he keeps the focus on Harris's record as a prosecutor and as an attorney general in California, and as, of course, her record, too, as vice president in the Biden administration. But there have been concerns that I've heard from outside allies that Trump's tone could really hurt him with college-educated women who he continues to struggle with. And we've seen how Trump has tried to moderate his message for women. He's said his administration would be great for, quote, reproductive rights. And, he's bragged about how some women really love him, but the polling just doesn't bear that out. And Trump's advisors brought in former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, who debated against Kamala Harris to help him recalibrate ahead of this debate. And she landed some pretty she landed some attack lines when she debated Harris herself that were seen as pretty effective. But of course, the factor, too, that she's a woman, and Trump's going to have to keep that in mind tonight.
Yeah, back in the 2019 Democratic primaries there. So you mentioned that Trump's advisors are hoping to focus on policy. I think we all can be a little skeptical that Trump himself is able to do that. He was relatively subdued in his debate against President Biden, though told countless lies. That, of course, was overshadowed by Biden's faltering performance. What's the worry level among Trump allies and aides that he's going to be able to simply keep his composure tonight, particularly if Harris, a former prosecutor, really goes at him?
Well, I think they feel a sigh of relief with the debate rules themselves. The fact that these microphones are going to be muted, that's going to prevent him from talking over Harris. And, you know, if you think back to when Harris debated Vice President Mike Pence, one of those memorable moments was when she turned to him and said, "I'm speaking," because he was interrupting her. And so I don't think we're going to see something like that on stage. But for Trump's advisors, really sticking to her record is going to be essential to them feeling good about tonight.
National political correspondent for Politico, Meredith McGraw, thank you so much. We, of course, will be reading your latest reporting online, and it cannot be overstated tonight, a significant moment in this campaign, one we weren't sure was going to happen, one that, of course, comes on the heels of a consequential debate, a debate that changed the Democratic ticket. Now, Vice President Harris versus former President Trump. We, of course, will have complete coverage all day long on MSNBC.